Hey everybody, I'm James Conole, the founder of Root Financial Partners, and I'm here to teach you what you need to know to create a secure retirement. Now, if you're like most people, Social Security is something you've been paying into your entire life. Not just that, but the income you can expect to receive from Social Security in retirement represents a fairly significant amount, maybe even a lot of what you're going to be living on when you're retired. But here's the thing. Most people don't know what they need to do to maximize that benefit. And if you don't maximize your benefit, you may be leaving tens of thousands of dollars, if not more, on the table over the course of your lifetime. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to teach you what you need to know in order to fully maximize your Social Security benefit. Now, before we jump into how you can actually maximize your benefit and the things that you can do and the steps you can take to do so, let's talk about how Social Security is structured, how it's created, so that you know how the system works. And when you know how the system works, then you can focus on how you can maximize your benefit. So here's how Social Security is funded, or here's how it's calculated. It's not funded by regular income taxes. It is funded by what are called payroll taxes, which is money that you pay into Social Security and Medicare. So every dollar that you earn up to a cap, and that cap this year is $142,800, every dollar that you earn in wages, 6.2% of that gets paid into Social Security, and that's withheld directly from your paycheck. Now, your employer is paying an additional 6.2% up to that cap. So a total of 12.4% is going to fund Social Security on the first $142,800 of income that you earn. Now, there's an additional amount that goes to fund Medicare, but we're talking specifically about Social Security right now. So as you're looking at that, that's the income that's going to fund Social Security, and that's what's going to pay retirees the benefit that they have. Now, that income, what Social Security does is they look at how much you are paying into the system, and they're going to take your 35 highest years of earnings. So if you work just 1 year, that's only 1 year that you've paid into the system. If you work just 10 years, that's just 10 years that you paid into the system. They're going to look at your 35 highest years of earnings, meaning if you have 40 years of earnings, they're going to take the top 35 and leave out the bottom 5. So as they're doing this, they are looking at what are your earnings adjusted for inflation, and that goes into calculating your benefit. So if you say, well, I earn a lot more today than I earned 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago because of inflation, well, they take that into account. So for example, in 2021, the earnings limit, so the most amount that you pay into Social Security to really max out your benefit for that year, is $142,800. In 1991, so 20 years ago, that same amount of income that you needed to max out your benefit for that year was $53,400. So what Social Security is doing is they're taking all of your previous earnings and adjusting it for inflation to normalize that over time. Now, earnings are means tested. What that means is as you're paying into Social Security, let's assume that you have two people. One person makes the $142,800. They fully max out their Social Security cap for this year. The next person makes half of that. So let's assume they make $71,400. And let's assume that these two individuals make the same exact amount for the next 35 years. So they fill up they max out their 35 years, and one individual consistently makes double what the other individual makes. That does not mean that this first individual will actually have double the benefit in retirement. Social Security is means tested, meaning the first dollars that you're paying in are weighted more heavily in the formula that Social Security uses to calculate your end benefit. So for example, the first $996 that you earn, so a very, very low threshold, Social Security is including 90% of that in the formula that they're going to use to calculate what your benefit would be. So almost every dollar is weighted in the end formula. The next dollars, from $996 to $6,002, they're weighing 32% of that in the formula that they're going to use to calculate your benefit. Then any amounts above $6,002 up to the cap of $142,800, they're taking 15% of that and including it in the formula that they use to calculate your benefit. So that can be kind of confusing. What does that mean? It just means that the first dollars that you're paying, or the first dollars that you're earning that are taxed by Social Security, are weighted more heavily and have a bigger impact on what your benefit will be than do the last dollars. So that's good news for people who are saying, you know what, I've never made $142,000. Does that mean I'm gonna have a significantly lower benefit than someone that does? well, you're certainly going to have a lower benefit, but it's not going to be proportionate to your earnings compared to their earnings. So those are the earnings. That's how the earnings are taxed, and that's the amount of the earnings that are taxed. But when it comes to that, the question is, when can I collect these earnings? Well, you have something that's called a primary insurance amount. You might see it called PIA on a Social Security statement or in something that you're reading about Social Security. Your primary insurance amount is the amount of a benefit that you are eligible to collect at your full retirement age. Now, if you're watching this and you're not already collecting Social Security, then it's likely that your full retirement age is based on, is somewhere between 66 and 67 years old, based upon the year in which you were born. But at age 66 to 67, so your full retirement age, you are eligible for your primary insurance amount, which is essentially your full retirement benefit. Now, you don't have to collect at that age. You can collect as soon as age 62 or as late as age 70. What Social Security is going to do is the earlier you collect your benefit, the more they're going to discount that. So they're going to lessen your benefit based upon you collecting earlier. The longer you wait to collect, the greater your benefit is going to be. They're going to increase your earnings or increase the income you could receive from that the longer you wait to collect. So that's how Social Security is structured. It's how it's funded. It's how they calculate the earnings. It's how many years of earnings they actually look at. Let's now look at what you can do to maximize the benefit you can expect from this system. Step number one, the first thing that you can do to maximize your earnings is work 35 years. As I mentioned, as Social Security is calculating their benefit, what they're going to do is they're going to look at your earnings. And they have a history of it. From the day one of your working career until today, they know exactly how much you paid into Social Security. They're looking at the 35 highest years of earnings. Now, let's say you've only worked 30 years, for example. What they're going to do is they're going to take those 30 years of earnings and then assume there's 5 additional years of $0 for earnings for those years. So when they're calculating your benefit is going to include 5 years of 0, which is going to weigh your total benefit down. It's going to lower the average income that's being calculated on. So what can you do to increase your benefit? Well, you can work for 5 more years. And before you say, James, that's easier said than done. Of course, I could just go work longer, but maybe I don't want to. Well, remember this, the first $6,002 that you earn is weighted most heavily compared to other dollars in your Social Security calculation. So this doesn't necessarily have to be staying at your job right now that you're looking to retire from. This doesn't have to be go earn 6 figures or more of income. If you just earn a few $1,000s, that's going to have a relatively significant benefit in the calculation of your Social Security benefit. So it doesn't need to be a whole bunch of money that you earn, but even little amounts really add up over time when you use those to replace other years that ordinarily would have been 0 if you're not working the full 35 years. Number 2, the second thing you can do is wait to collect if possible. I mentioned that you can collect anywhere between age 62 and age 70. So there's an 8-year window. Now, what's going to happen is every year you collect prior to your full retirement age, so again, age 66 to 67, every year that you collect before that, your benefit will be decreased between 5% and 6.67%. Depending on what year it is or depending on what age you're collecting at, your benefit will be reduced. Social Security is going to reduce your benefit because you're now collecting it for more years, so you're going to be penalized for that. The longer you wait to collect, the less of those penalties or the less of those declines or less of those reductions you're going to experience. Now, not only that, but if you wait to collect after your full retirement age, so after age 66 to 67, you receive what are called delayed retirement credits. And a delayed retirement credit is an 8% increase in the benefit that you can expect. So if your full retirement age is 66 and you collect at age 67 instead, you're going to receive an 8% increase in your benefit. If you wait to collect at age 68 instead of 66, you are going to receive a 16% increase in your benefit. So this is a simple increase. It's not 8% compounded per year, it's just 8% simple increase per year. But if you don't need the income, or if it's part of your tax strategy, you want to delay Social Security, if part of your income plan is to delay Social Security, every year you wait past full retirement age, you are getting an 8% increase in your overall benefit. The third thing that you can look to do to maximize your Social Security benefit is consider spousal benefits. And in fact, this is one that a lot of people don't know about. When people are retiring, let's assume that you have a spouse that's retiring or 2 spouses that are retiring, oftentimes one spouse will have a higher earnings history than the other. Maybe one spouse was staying at home with the children or one spouse wasn't working or whatever it is. Typically, you have one spouse that has a much higher earnings history than does the other. What they expect is they expect that one spouse is going to have a really high benefit and one spouse is going to have a low benefit. So it's not material, it's not substantial, but it's something. Well, there's something called a spousal benefit, where when you go to retire, you can collect the higher of either your own benefit or 50% of your spouse's benefit at full retirement age. So for example, maybe one spouse has a $3,000 Social Security benefit at their full retirement age, and the other spouse has an $800 benefit because they had lesser earnings history or lesser income over the course of their lifetime. Well, this second spouse could go ahead and collect $800, or they could say, what would my spousal benefit would be? Which would be half of their spouse's benefit, which is $3,000 per year or $3,000 per month. So they could instead collect half of that, which would be $1,500. So instead of collecting $800 per month, they're now collecting $1,500 per month, which is almost double what they otherwise would have expected. So that's a benefit that most people aren't aware of, but it's something to know, because when you're looking at Social Security, it's not just your earnings history, it's also your spouse's earnings history. Now, let's assume that you're divorced potentially. If you were married for at least 10 years before you were divorced, and assuming you have been remarried at certain years, there's some other details that go along with this, but if you were married for at least 10 years and you're now divorced, you also are eligible for a spousal benefit. So keep that in mind as you're looking at what Social Security option might be best for you. The fourth thing that you can do is look at survivor's benefits. And now this is a really important one for a couple of reasons, which I'm going to explain below. If one spouse passes away, then the surviving spouse is eligible for 100% of the deceased spouse's benefit. So if you have a couple going into retirement and one of them passes away, the surviving spouse will collect the higher of their own benefit or the deceased spouse's benefit. So this is very important from a planning perspective for a couple reasons. The first is when you are planning for your retirement, your Social Security decision is not just a one-person decision. It's not how do I maximize my Social Security benefit and how does my spouse maximize her Social Security benefit. It's really how do we maximize benefits over the duration of our lifetime, even if one spouse predeceases the other. Because back to that example where maybe one spouse was a high earner and the other spouse was a low earner, well, the low earner can still collect a spousal benefit, but if the higher earning spouse, for example, were to delay their benefit until age 70, what that does is it locks in a higher benefit for them, and it also locks in a higher benefit for their spouse should they predecease them. So that's a really significant way to protect the surviving spouse or to protect for longevity in either spouses by delaying your benefit, because it locks it in higher for you and it potentially locks it in higher for your surviving spouse if you were to predecease them. Now, another area where this comes in handy as you're planning for retirement is this. Let's assume that you have a spouse that unfortunately passes away before either of you collect Social Security. What you could do is this, let's assume you're 60 and one spouse passes away. Well, the surviving spouse could potentially collect a survivor's benefit as early as age 62. Really, they could collect as early as 60. Survivor's benefit isn't 62, 60 is the earliest you can collect it. But let's assume that you collect early. So you have a survivor's benefit that you're collecting, which is increasing your level of income today. What you could do is you could continue collecting that survivor's benefit for the next several years, because as long as you're collecting your survivor's benefit, your own personal benefit is continuing to rise. So it's providing you some income today while you're getting to take advantage of increasing benefits on your own record, because you're waiting not to collect at 62, not even to collect at age 67, but potentially at age 70. So while you're collecting the survivor's benefit, your benefit is fully maxed at age 70, and then you can switch benefits. So again, that's why this is a two-person decision. With some good planning, what you can do is use your survivor's benefit for current income, for immediate income, but still have a higher benefit that you would then switch to at a later age, like age 70. So when you're looking at this, this also exists for deceased ex-spouses. So if you were divorced and your divorced spouse that you were married to for 10 plus years passed away, you are now eligible for a survivor benefit on their record as well. So as you're looking at all this, you can see how helpful it is to understand how the system works, how many years are factored into your benefit, what earnings look like with your benefit, how collecting at different ages impacts your benefit. And when you know this, you can figure out for yourself, when does it make sense to collect based upon your age? Should you continue potentially working part-time or more full-time years to increase the amount of years that are included in your benefit calculation? And how do you potentially factor in spousal benefits or survivor's benefits? And when you know how to do that, you can really make the most of your Social Security benefit, which is going to play a significant role in your overall income plan in retirement. So thanks for watching. Again, this is James Conole, founder of Root Financial Partners. If this video is valuable to you, please hit subscribe, please like this video, and if you know anyone that could benefit from it, please share. Sharing helps more people find this, and the more people that can find this, the more people will be impacted, and the more people can increase their benefits and create a secure retirement. Now, if you'd like more information about any of this, you can also tune in to our Ready for Retirement podcast, which is a podcast dedicated to teaching you the tips and strategies that you need to know to create your secure retirement. And if you're interested in retirement planning services, please visit our website at rootfinancialpartners.com, where you can learn more about what those services look like as well.